Good morning, everyone. Good morning, researchers here present, staff, professors, very senior colleagues, postgraduate students from FUT Mina and beyond FUT Mina. Please, am I audible? Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Doc. We can hear you.
Okay. So, my name is, as Malam Isa introduced me, Sadiat Adetoro Salau, and I'll be the presenter for this morning. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Okay. I will be talking about the routes to open access publishing. And this is my presentation outline. So we'll look at what open access publishing is. We'll look at the other forms of publishing access. We'll look at the significance of open access publishing to the academic community. The recent developments in the research publishing ecosystem. We'll also look at the open access publishing routes, which is the crux of this presentation, and recent developments in the research publishing ecosystem, and also how we can find open access journals. Okay. Sorry, please. Okay. So what exactly is open access publishing? It's open access publishing is a publishing process where scholarly outputs like journal articles, conference papers, and books are published and freely available online with less restrictive copyright and licensing barriers than the traditional published work. So ordinarily, when we publish, before the advent of the internet and digital technologies, when we publish our books and journals in print, if another researcher in a different university wants to maybe reuse it, translate it, or maybe mine it traditionally, the person has to get in touch with you in your university to give him or her the right to be able to use that. But with open access publishing, it is less restrictive. So I can actually use your research findings, but acknowledge you as the researcher, but I don't need to go and find you to say, please, I want to use your research. So it's simply a means to make research results freely available online to the whole research community. Open access publishing, when it started before now, people have different opinions about what it was. Change is not very easy. So people were finding it difficult to accept open access publishing. However, it is not self-publishing. So then when it started newly, when you say you want to publish openly, they believe you are self-publishing. You want to run away from the peer review process. You want to just jump the review and research process, the ethical review and research process. So, but open access publishing is not self-publishing in any way, nor is it a way that you bypass peer review and publication. The manuscript actually go through the routine editorial and peer review process. It doesn't miss that. The only difference is that now you are publishing, your results are online, freely available for researchers and the public to use. It is not a low-class predatory publishing route. And you get that as we continue the presentation. So we'll look at the other routes, the other publishing access. We talked about open access publishing, but there are other access that is necessary for researchers to know. So when we talk about closed access publishing, which is the opposite, right, of open access publishing. Now, you do not pay article publishing fees. So you send your manuscript to a journal and they are not requesting for money from you. You understand? You get it published. However, immediately you get that article published, the access is closed, even to you as the researcher. You as a researcher, you own that work, you have written it, but you sent it to a publisher. Immediately they get it published, you cannot have access to it. If you have to have access to it, you have to pay for it. Do you understand? So access to the article is closed immediately after publishing for authors and for readers. The only way you get access to it is if your library subscribe or you pay, like I said, by you, the author, or any reader. Immediately, you also cede the copyright to the publisher, because the publisher has to recoup whatever money or expenses that have gone through the publication process. That is what closed access publishing. So the opposite now is open access, which is what we're talking about. We don't want our publications, we want to have access to our publications, right? We don't want it to be closed that publishers are the one profiting from it. So we also have what we call hybrid open access publishing. And hybrid open access publishing is actually closed access publishing, but with a twist. Now, the access is subscription-based. You know, these journals are actually closed access publishing. You submit, you don't pay article publishing fees, but once it is published, you don't have access to it. However, as an author, what the publishers do is that they select some journals and say, okay, you have the option of publishing the article in that journal openly through the gold open access route. And I will talk about that subsequently in the presentation. So closed access is actually closed. I hope you understand that. But hybrid is closed with a twist of open. Now, let's look at the significance of open access publishing to the academic community. Why is open access publishing important for us as academicians, as researchers, and even to not just even the academic community, to be fair, also to the public? One, it saves institutions and libraries subscription costs, which have skyrocketed over the years. Now, let's use Nigeria as an example. Libraries are finding it extremely difficult to subscribe to databases for our researchers. And let me contextualize this. So, Science Direct database is a well-known, very, very popular database that most researchers want to have access to. But no library in Nigeria as of today can subscribe to Science Direct. Why? It is over 100 million per annum. So you have access to Science Direct for 1 year for 100 million naira. That is not sustainable. No library can do that. So with open access, this subscription cost, even if a library were to have, and interestingly, it's not just Nigeria or countries in the global south. Even the developed countries are not finding it funny. And in fact, they're really negotiating their ways out of this. And I would say rightly that although open access publishing pays the countries in the global south, it actually started from there because of subscription costs that libraries were not able to pay for. So open access publishing is also a requirement for grant funders. You know, so when you have a funder that is funding, you get a research grant. Part of the requirement is that at the end of the research or whatever project it is you're doing, that you are able to publish the results openly. So it's also significant to that. It also makes research findings more visible and open to participation. And in fact, I think this is usually the first benefit that, especially for researchers now, your research is very visible. People see it and can collaborate with you. Now, not just researchers and the public, which is where the research ecosystem is tending to now. Like, research findings should not only circulate within the research ecosystem, just within researchers. We want to get it to the public. Research findings should inform public policies, should inform projects, and come up with innovative programs that will benefit the public. So this is one of its significance to the academic community. It also accelerates the pace of scientific progress. Of course, because it's open, you already know what somebody has done, you know, and so you'll be able to take it up from there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You know, having access to whatever findings, whatever is happening all over the world makes science progress. Also, of course, and closely related to there's widespread dissemination of knowledge, which in turn accelerates innovation. It's closely related to the point about making research findings visible. The research findings are disseminated widely because people have access to it. You agree with me that when money is involved, people don't want to talk about that. But if it's free, why not? People are able to use it and come up with innovations based on the research findings. Okay. Now let's look at the open access publishing routes, which is the crux of this presentation. So we have what we call the gold open access publishing. And I know a number of us would have heard about what gold open access, or heard the term gold open access. So when you see you're on a publisher's website and you see something about gold open access, what it actually means now is that you as a researcher, you are to pay the article publishing fees. You are paying for that article to be published. It's either you as a researcher personally, or your funder, if you have a research funder that is funding your research, or your institution. Now, let me explain the institution route. You know, I said it earlier that even the global north, the developed countries are finding it very, very extremely difficult to subscribe to the huge amounts of money publishers are demanding. So what institutions in the global north, in the developed countries have done is that they are negotiating with publishers. So what they do is now they pay publishers a lump sum for a year or 2 years or 5 years, depending on what the terms of agreement is. So for that 5 years or 2 years or whatever term, all of the researchers in that institution can openly publish their articles. So no researcher from that institution will pay article publishing fee, whether it's a postgraduate student or an academic staff. So let me contextualize this. So say Science Direct now, FUT Mina pays, let's say 100 million for 5 years. So during that 5 years, all of us in FUT, both postgraduate students and academic staff, can publish in any of the Elsevier journals free of charge. You understand? The library can also has open access to all of these articles, you know. So, but because before now, what the publishers are doing is, you as a researcher, you pay to publish, right? Now they close the access. Your library subscribes. So they are getting money from both the researchers and the institutions. So that's what brought about the transformative agreement. Now you cannot collect money from our researchers, and our library will also subscribe for them to assess what they have paid for, or whatever it is, their articles. So countries in the global north came up with that. And it also falls under the gold open access. For this publishing route, access is open immediately because payment is involved anyway from somebody apart from the publishers. Access is open immediately after publishing for authors and for readers, you know, and authors can actually retain the copyright. And in most cases, there are no restrictions on reuse and permissions with the use of the Creative Commons license. So if you're going the open access route, then the restrictions are low. Say, for instance, I get a research finding that I want to text mine. There's some data I want to get from that. I do not need to contact that the researcher. I can use it, although I have to acknowledge the researcher. It is very important. You don't just copy someone's work. You must acknowledge where it's coming from. But of course, you don't go through the hassle of trying to contact that researcher that you want to use his or her work. So this is the assumed, gold open access is the assumed, and that's why assumed is in inverted commas, is the assumed publishing route for our local journals. So let me contextualize this. Our local journals, the very print journals we use in Nigeria, what do? We submit our manuscript. You know, we pay an assessment fee, right? Then you pay the publication fees, right? And then it gets published. You can see it's still the route of the normal routes. However, the difference with this, our local publishing, is that the large commercial publishers are available online. So some of our local journals are not available online. Because if they are available, I will pay my assessment fee and I'll also pay the publication fee, and it is freely available. And also our local journals, they are not, the article publishing fee is very low compared to, so we have like 20, 25, at most 50,000 compared to the international journals that you can, for an article, in some of these journals, you pay as much as $2,000, $2,000, $3,000. How many of our researchers can actually afford that? You understand? So this is the assumed route for our journals, although we have our own challenges anyway with that. So, but I think we'll talk about that subsequently too. So another publishing route is the green open access route. Some of us must have seen this green open access. So what this basically means, it's, okay, it's known as self-archiving. Now, what do we mean by self-archiving? You as an author or a researcher can upload a draft, like, so that's your manuscript that you haven't sent to a publisher, is what we call the preprint manuscript. You can upload that before sending it to any publisher, to a repository, or through the academic social media online. You can send it to, upload it to ResearchGate or academia.edu. However, before you do that, it is important that you check with the journal. Ask them that this is what you want to do. You want to publish this using the green open access route because you want to upload. Some journals will tell you outrightly that they don't accept that. So that means you cannot do this. Some will tell you that, okay, if you upload it, whatever it is you're uploading, when you're sending your manuscript to them, it shouldn't be more than 30%. Some will even tell you the title has to change. Some will tell you have to increase the methodology. So different journals have different rules when it comes to the green open access publishing route. And the last one is that the fact that there's usually an embargo period. At times also, you could have actually published it. Now, you're not even uploading the manuscript. You'd have actually published it, a completely published article. So they tell you that you cannot upload this to any repository. You cannot upload this to any academic social media site till after 5 years or after 10 years, depending. That's usually the embargo period. So that's why I said it's important, if you know you want to go through this route, you have to check with the journal. And they tell you which of the rules apply to them. For green open access, article publishing fees is not paid. You're not going to pay any article publishing fees. And that's why there are all of these rules, because the publishers want to get back their money, right? And access to it. And if you're not paying, remember I said, if you're not giving publishers money, access to your article is closed, even you as the owner of that research. You understand? So it's either it's subscription-based for a period of time, depending on the journal policy. Or if you're library subscribed, then you'll be able to have access to it. Copyright might be transferred to the publisher, depending on the rules or the policy of the journal. And there are also restrictions on reuse. So green open access is somewhere in between the gold open access and the closed. It's in between open and closed access, something like that. You are not fully open, yet you're not fully closed. The next is the diamond open access publishing route. Okay, so for the diamond open access publishing, there are no publishing fees. You don't charge the author and you don't charge the reader. You understand? Open access to articles are immediate. So if you send to such journals, they don't collect article publishing fees from you. They publish your journal or your manuscript for a journal or a conference or as a book. They don't collect any money from you. And also as a reader, I'll be able to access these articles free of charge. So this is where the research community is moving towards. It's a new concept. It's a new, I think based on the shortfalls of the gold open access and green open access, which I would explain later in the presentation, the research community, international research community, came up with the diamond open access. Now, research findings should be open. Now, if some people are benefiting from it, it is still restricting research findings. You understand? And so it shouldn't be so. I think this came about basically after COVID. researches were very open at that time. And I think people began to see the importance of openly sharing research findings. It accelerated a lot of innovations during that time that helped curb the epidemic, you know. So now the research community are saying, if we have to accelerate research like we did during COVID-19, then we have to do away with this gold open access or green open access where people have to pay to publish or pay to access research findings, you know. So it's called no fee publishing, although the color code still remains diamond open access. So they're community driven, academic led and academic owned publishing institutions. So if you find a journal that doesn't accept article publishing fees from you or does not demand for money for you to access, most likely it will not be a commercial publisher. You understand? So the community driven, the academic led, and academic owned. The author retains the copyright. You don't cede your copyright, irrespective of the fact that you're not paying any article publishing fees. Now let's look at recent developments in the research publishing ecosystem. So, like I said in my previous slide, there's this increased movement by the research community to the no-fee publishing route, which is the diamond open access publishing. They're moving away from the commercial research publishing, where you pay to publish or you pay to access. Also, I think the heat is getting to the commercial publishers, right? And so some of the commercial publishers now have article publishing fee waivers for researchers from the Global South. So you may do well to check with whatever journal you're publishing with to see if they have waivers for publishers from the Global South. And I think this is so, the heat got to them because the international community say Global South don't have money. How would you tell a researcher from even Nigeria to pay $3,000 for one article? It doesn't make sense. So because of that, they really don't want that the open access, diamond open access movement to overtake that business model they are having. Okay, so if you're from the Global South, there's a waiver. Do you have research funds? If you have research funds, they might not give you a waiver because they expect that there'll be funding for publications. You understand? So some of these rules are basically because of the open access hit. We see a lot of funding internationally now going into open infrastructure to aid non-fee publishing. And as usual in Africa, we know our problems now. You know, we always say there's no infrastructure, we don't have money, we don't have this, we don't have that. So the international community are throwing a lot of funds into having open infrastructure. The open journal system is one of it. A lot of our journals are not online, right? They are in print. You say, okay, we don't have money for the infrastructure. There are open infrastructures that can be used. Even our repositories, they're open. You understand? So what we need is just to configure. So we see a lot of funding going into that to help the visibility of African researchers and to also help internationalize our journals. I see a lot of us don't like publishing because of some of these drawbacks. So there's been recently a lot of innovations going in that direction to help our journals. Another interesting development is that funders are also keen into this new fee publishing. And the example I'm giving is that of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So for 2025, the open access publishing policy, in part of it, these are experts from their policy. But I got those two interesting sentences. So they're funded for their researches now. So if they have funded a research project for you, they don't need it printed, published finally. What they need is that your manuscript will be published as a preprint. And I explained what a preprint is. That's raw research writing that has not gone through whether peer review or copy editing by publisher. You're going to publish that as a preprint on a preprint server. So we have preprint servers, we have different disciplines having their own specific preprint repository. There are some that are recognized by Bill and Melinda Gates. So they're expecting you that you'd submit your manuscript to them, to those servers. because they have, of course, sufficient level of scrutiny. So when we're talking about research findings being open, it doesn't really mean, like I said initially, that we want to bypass peer review. No, we don't just expect that researchers will submit anything. So even with the preprint servers, you still go through some level of peer review. It's just that it's not as rigorous. No, I take that back. That's not the term. It doesn't waste so much time. You know, at times you submit a manuscript, and at times it takes up to a year and a half before the research finding. In fact, as at the time it gets published, some of the findings are already obsolete. So these are some of the challenges with the publishing in the publishing ecosystem that open access is trying to. So with the preprint server, it's already up there. People can make comments. People already know somebody's working on this. You understand? So, but Bill and Melinda Gates is also saying, if you now decide that you want to publish that manuscript openly, they are not going to pay any article processing charges. It cannot be embedded as part of the research grant. So it is a responsibility. Now, so if they are not paying that, that means most likely the grantors or the awardees have to go and look for journals that are offering the Diamond open access route that will not collect article publishing fees from them. So funders are also increasingly keen into this. So, and another interesting one is the fact that this sustainability model now, because we can always talk about the fact that if you're saying that researchers are not going to pay, or readers are not going to pay to access, or authors are not going to pay to publish, how will it be sustained? So this sustainability model that is envisaged for this community, for the no-fee publishing, is envisaged to be community-driven, academic and research-led, and academic and research-owned. So I want to emphasize this, that it is time for us to now internationalize our institutional and professional journal, because that is the way forward now. You understand? We have to take our minds away from publishing as a profit-making service. If it's going to be community-driven, we cannot always depend on the international journals. We have to grow our own right now, because all of those so-called high impact factor journals are commercially driven. You understand? And if the research community is moving away from that, we have to build up our own to replace those ones. Now, why do we have, someone might ask, why are these recent developments coming up? Researchers from Global South, of course, which Nigeria is, are disadvantaged if they choose to publish their researches as open access by paying article publishing fees. We've said that before. Some journals, even as much as $200, it's very difficult for some of our researchers. You agree with me? As much as that is like someone's 1 month salary, or if not more than, to pay for one article. And you know you need more than one article for your promotion, for tenure, for whatever. So we are usually at disadvantage. You understand? There's also sustainability fund fees for journal databases that have increased. I said that example of no library in Nigeria having access or being able to subscribe to very good databases like Science Direct, because the money is too much. So these are some of the reasons for the recent development. And of course, there's increased displeasure over exploitation and monetization of academic publishing by commercial entities. Let me contextualize this for you. So I heard of a professor. He's a professor of food science, right? He got some of his colleagues from all over Africa. They were to research and write on indigenous foods in Africa, you know, from our Fura de Nono to what are our local foods, to our Dawanke and to Amala, to all local vegetables and local herbs and all of that. Now they got together and wrote this very good book, you know. And what happened? Because they could not pay the article publishing fees, the access was closed, including to them that are the researchers. And these are foods for Africa. But a commercial entity in the global north, developed country, owns the copyright to that. You understand? Now, researchers sit and write. You have to pay a publisher to own that copyright. If not, they make money from it. So there's a lot of monetization of the academic publishing by these commercial entities that is becoming very, very displeasurable to people, especially because it's really closing access to research findings. And how can science progress if that is not done? And in fact, because they're commercial entities, there are a lot of tricks they do. You understand? Because let's be factual. A whole lot of it's not as if we don't publish in Africa, truly. We do. But maybe because we don't have those article publishing fees to publish in those commercial entities, that they will always rank as the best so that everybody goes to them. You have to go and sweat to get money. The visibility of what we're doing, what happens to it? So we have to always depend on them, always pay them money to publish or to access. So because of this, the open access movement is no, we cannot let academic publishing be monetized again. So how do I find open access journals? So after all of this, now I want to publish Diamond Open Access, I want to publish using Gold or any of the routes. How do I find it? I have, these are 2 resources that I have put here, and I will keep updating as soon as I find more. The directory of Open Access Journal, there's a link on it to the University Library website. So, but the Shepa Romeo, we have not linked that. So for directory of Open Access Journal, the database indexes open access journals from around the world. So say you want to publish in an open access journal, you can go to the directory to find out if that journal is there. So if it's there, most likely the journal is using one of the open access routes to publish, you understand? However, at times it can get a lot confusing because there are some policies. They'll say, yes, we are publishing gold open access for some set of journals, green open access for some set of journals, and and all of those long rules and regulations. The Shepa Romeo comes into play. So it's an online resource that aggregates the policies. So if I found a journal on directory of open access journal, and I decide that, okay, let me go and see what the policy says so that I'll be sure of what I'm doing, I'll use the Shepa Romeo. So it summarizes this publisher copyright and open access policies. Then they'll tell you, are you paying article publishing fee? You see it there, yes or no. Is there a waiver, yes or no? How much you understand? So it helps search for the journal or directory of open access journal and use Shepa Romeo to decide which of the routes that you are going to publish with. And I'll leave us with this saying, the future of research is open. And so we all have to be open about our research process. Thank you all for listening. Let's know if you have questions, inquiries, suggestions.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for the wonderful presentation. This session has been very educative. Please, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Please, Dr. Fati, unmute yourself, please, and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sadiat, for the beautiful presentation. I'm sure it now provides information on the different open access routes, which is actually the future of scholarly communication, considering all the limitations that Dr. Sadiat raised and even the benefits that comes with publishing openly. So as a way of next step, I would want to suggest that we start by making our institutional-based journal open. At least let charity begin at home. We know there are other journals that are running a form of open access route or the other, but then what of our institutional-based journal? I'm referring to FUTMINA, Nigerian Journal of Technological Research. what is happening to that journal. Let us make efforts towards ensuring that we start this open access publication, even if we cannot do it Diamond Open Access. At least we follow a form of open access publishing where there's no article charge, and then people can actually go there to read free of charge. You know, let's start with our institutional-based journal, and then we start that movement from there. And then faculty-based journals too, we have a lot of them on our campus. FUTSMINA, faculty-based journal. What is the status? Are we still running you pay to publish and then people also pay to read? Let's start encouraging that. We have very senior members on this webinar. Let's start the advocacy. Let's take it back home. Let us encourage our journals to follow suit and help ourselves. We must not cannot continue to copy what they are doing in developed world. Let's start inwards and help our journals grow, our local journals grow. We are not saying that we should undermine the integrity and quality of publishing. We are rather saying that the rigorous research that we conduct in our campus, like FUTSMINA, for instance, we have very, very good researchers that are doing original research that are based on true data, you know, but then they publish outside where it's closed access. So let's start with our institutional-based journal, our faculty-based journal. Let's do open access. And I'm sure that our visibility that the university management is so much interested in will be enhanced greatly if we start opening up our scholarly outputs. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fati. Deleke, please, you can unmute and ask your question, or if you have any comment. Hello, Elias. Kindly unmute yourself, please, and ask your question. Well, if Elias is not there, Dr. Ajayi, please, can you ask your question?
Good morning. Mine is not a question, but just a comment. I want to thank the presenter for that good work, and that's work is an eye opener for us, so many of us. I just want to chip in this, that as we are having this open access issue as a concern, as we are raising it, I want us to also have it at the back of our mind that we should make sure that whatever we want to publish, whatever we are presenting to the world, are issues that will solve societal problem. If there are issues that will solve societal problem, I can assure us that it will add to our visibility, because the essence of us making it open is that, and another thing is that our issues around this environment may not be, is not even what they experience in other climes. So I want to just encourage that as we are, clamoring, and as we are also pushing harder to make sure that we have all this, our publication online, and they are open, we should try to make sure that they address thematic issues pending and current issues around. That will also help, and also help this to propagate this open access very well if they address issues that concern us as a society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ajayi. Mr. Said, you can ask your question, please. Or if it's a comment, kindly go on, unmute yourself.
Hello.
Please, is that Said, please? Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes.
First of all, I would want to say a big thank you to Dr. Alima for that wonderful and insightful presentation. It's indeed educative. I would want to speak on the issue of university-based publication that Dr. Fati just spoke about. The issue of visibility, because I remember a mentor called me recently that I should try avoid publishing in university-based journals like conferences. You know, Dr. Halima spoke about building our own, developing our own. So I would have expected him to encourage that kind of publication in university-based journals. But he told me that the visibility is zero. You do all that research, do the presentation. At the end of the day, your publication is just dumped somewhere. It's not hosted online. So you don't get citations, you don't get people to view it. I guess my question would be, what does it take for these university-based journals to host the published journals and conferences online so that it can be visible to the global community? At least that would encourage local researchers to publish in places like that with the incentive that it will be viewed globally and you get citations. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Salau, if you're there, you can answer that question, or should I just chip in a little?
Of course. Thank you, Said, for that question. It's usually a genuine concern of a lot of researchers. It's not as if they don't want to publish in institutional-based journals, but you don't want to do all of that work and you don't get visibility, because what is in vogue is visibility to get citations, so you're ranked, right? But if we have to look at that pattern, as I said, it is commercially driven. And there are a lot of activities that are going on within that space that it's not the crux of this presentation. However, I talked about the fact that internationally, a lot of funds are going into open infrastructure. Our institutional-based journals, like I said, will always complain about funds, right? Now, we have the open journal system, which is an open source. So institutions are now keying into that. And in fact, FUT MENA too is onboarding all of our institutional-based journals to OJS. So we give ourselves within now to the next 6 months, a lot of our institutional-based journals will be online. So we don't have to do all of the manual processing of submitting to an editor and all of the manual process we do. All of the activities, the research process will be online, right? But you know, of course, because this is still relatively new to the system, we have to onboard the editors, the researchers, to understand how the research process would start moving forward. And this is just FUT. LipSense through WACREN, there are some organizations actually that are been advocating for this. This is just FUT, but it would also go nationally. You understand? So there will be a lot of capacity building and sensitization for authors, for researchers rather, for editors, for journal managers about how to be onboarded, the new Diamond Open Access publishing routes, and how to be onboarded using all of this open infrastructure to assist and internationalize our journals. Whether we like it or not, a time will really come that we cannot depend on the commercial entities. They are already ripping us, right? And we have to sit down. Usually what we do is to cede these responsibilities. It's always easy for you to cede responsibility to other people to do. But when they start exploiting you, I think it's time we sit now and take charge of our researches. That's why Diamond Open Access or no-fee publishing is academic and research community driven. You understand? We have to take, of course, like Dr. Fatih commented, one step at a time. It's a marathon, right? We're all used to the print and manual publishing. We have open infrastructure now. We onboard them, and gradually we'll get to where the international journals are. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes. Thank you, Doctor, for that enlightenment. Thank you very much.
Mr. Elias, if you are there, please kindly ask your question. Well, Professor Marilyn Keji can unmute and ask or make your comments, sir.
Yes, thank you. Let me join others to thank the presenter. She's very eloquent and she has dealt justice to the topic. Most of my confusions have been corrected now. I'm no longer confused about all these terminologies. Now, on the issue of visibility, to what extent is an African journal online of good help? Because some of our journals and most of the university-based journals are there and they are easily accessible. Can you speak more on this African journal online?
Yes, Prof. Thank you for that question. Africa Journal Agile is working with two other organizations, Wakren and ELF. All of these organizations have been driving the no-fee publishing in Africa. You see that a lot of our journals have now been onboarded on Agile. It is part of the work they have been doing. But you know, because before you are indexed on Agile, you have to have an online presence, at least for some sort. The first step is to onboard them to OJS. You understand? So you're not indexed on Agile, and your publication process, the research process, like submitting of manuscript, it is still manually done. You understand? So getting these institutional-based journals to OJS, then Agile will be able to aggregate them to increase visibility, which is what the other databases too have been doing. So there's a project, like I said, ongoing now, and they've been doing a lot of capacity building to onboard editors and journal managers on board to go on to Agile. You understand? Although there are requirements, which is some of the areas that some of the challenges we are having with our local journals. You don't just want to, because we want to increase visibility, right? But we don't just want anyhow. We don't want to just put up anyhow journal. So there are criteria before you join Agile. So that means our institutional-based journal must put in the work. It's not a matter of, okay, you're this year you're going to publish, the next year, maybe the next 3 years. No, that inconsistency will not be there. There must be inconsistency. You must show that you've been consistently publishing before Agile can aggregate and increase visibility. But they're doing something about it. Prof, like I said, you notice a lot of journals have started coming to Agile. It is part of the work there.
Yes, if our environmental journal,
Yes, that's true. So this is part of the work they are doing. But it's, like I said, it's a marathon. Gradually, we will get to where we want our journals to be. But Agile is a key stakeholder in all of this no-fee publishing. Okay. Dr. Fatifa, I see you want to say something. Please, you can add to what I have said.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sadia. I think, like I said, I like it when we take it a step at a time. FUTMINA wants to pilot this open access publishing, and I'm happy that we've decided to take the bull by its own, and then Dr. Sadia and the University Library, and we'll be championing that effort. Let us see how it works for us, starting with our institutional-based journal, onboarding them on OGS, and I hope when that time comes, Prof will support us, you know, by encouraging editors of faculty journals in FUTMINA for a start, encouraging them to join and helping us with the onboarding, because we need their maximum cooperation to make this a reality. Let's see how it works for us, FUTMINA. And then after a while, we measure the impact, the visibility. Then we would be able to say that, okay, this thing works for FUTMINA, other institutions should follow suit, and gradually, a ripple effect will have more visibility for our local journals in Nigeria.
Thank you very much for adding that.
Mr. Akobi, please unmute and ask your question or make your comment.
Okay, a very good morning to everyone here. Doctor, thank you for your wonderful presentation. I actually have two questions here, and they are questions that look more like concerns also. So my first question is actually, I really want to know what is in for researchers who actually undergo rigorous researches to promote open access. Okay, because I know you said visibility of academic output, probably increase our ranking, promotion, and the rest. Aside all of these things, what do researchers actually stand to gain when they publish in open access? That's one. Then question two, as much as we try to promote open access, okay, what effort has been put in place, or to what extent are we trying to measure the level of adoption of recommendations from quality researches that has been turned out into open access? Because it will just be as though we just keep publishing and keep publishing and keep writing papers and making recommendations. To what extent or to what level will we be able to measure the adoption of recommendations from all of these quality researches? Thank you, ma'am.
Doctor, before you answer those questions, please let's get all the questions as time is fast approaching. We still like to call Mr. Ilyas Adeleke to unmute. If he's not there, well, I think I do have a question to ask too. Mr. Ilyas, please ask your question.
Okay. Good morning once again. My thanks to the Dr. Alima for the wonderful lecture. My question goes thus. I know one of the open access we students normally use is sci-hub.se. But we discover most of the time, recent articles were not populated on these sites. Is there any advice from you to direct us more on how we can get recent articles without being subjected to any form of payment online?
Mr. Ilyas, can you please type the name of the link to the site you mentioned on the chat box, please? Okay,
I'm going to do that right away.
Okay. Mine, well, that will cap you as the last question. Mine is as an independent editor, how do I internationalize my journal? Because we've talked about OJS, and I believe OJS is targeted mostly for a start that I want to do. As an independent editor, I need to institutionalize my journal. How do I go about that? That's my question. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Malamisa. Mr. Kobe's first question was, what do we stand to gain by openly publishing researches? That is also another genuine concern. And I know I was discussing this with an older colleague. I said, I think it's time that we start preaching research and academia from the social impact angle, because a lot of our new or Gen Z researchers want money for their researches, and which is what Mr. Kobe has said. Actually, if you're in the academia or you are published or you are into academic research, you understand it is for social impact. What it can do for the community. It's more like, what's that word they use? Like, what you can do for your community. That is what academic research. There are people that go into commercial research. You understand? For businesses, yes, and a conglomerate can actually commission you to carry out a research. You can leverage your academic research skills for that. But if you are into academic research, basically, apart from citation and visibility, it's for social impact. The citation and visibility can be gotten and you leverage it for commercial research. I hope I've answered that one. That's what you tend to gain. Then adoption of recommendation of some of our researches. It's actually another genuine concern. And that's why also research assessment globally, there's also a new look at how to assess our researches. We see truly that we make a lot of recommendations that we don't see the impact. Now, recently, bodies are coming up with new assessment criteria for researches, which actually includes something as simple as what is the impact? Like you actually have to show how your research has impacted to society to actually assess that research. You understand? So if this reform is materializes, you see that a lot of our researches will now be more impactful, because at the end of the day, you have to show what the impact is to the either local community or generally. You understand? Either through policy, product, or service, whatever it is. When our research assessment tends to that now, moves to that, which is also another marathon. You understand? So many of these reforms we're seeing in the open access, the research community is because of some of the challenges, like you have mentioned, that people have noticed. Because if we keep assessing researches quantitatively only by visibility, by citation count, by ranking, that is what the focus of the academicians will be, right? I can always publish, churn out all of these researches. As much as I have 100 publications, my citations is 1,000. I am ranked the top second publisher or researcher, rather, in Nigeria. That is what matters. But when we now quantify and qualify, whatever that means, not just quantity now, but quality too, then I see that we would see a lot of adoption of some of these recommendations. I don't know, someone asked the question about using, what's that? What was the URL?
Okay, Mr. Elias is talking about Sci-Hub.
Okay.
That's what he was saying. So if I know you have a comment on that, please.
Of course, definitely,
do justice to that.
Definitely. You know, so Sci-Hub, it's a passive aggression approach to closed open access. You understand? So the author, or the person that set up Sci-Hub, was actually angry that publishers, you want to have access to a very good quality research, and you can have it. Why not? Why not? Why don't I steal it from them and put it and let it be visible? But you know, a lot of legal issues have been going back and forth. And of course, even as researchers, you have the ethical and moral justification of not going into Sci-Hub, right? That is one of the advantages of this no-fee publishing and Diamond open access route, right? I cannot tell you where to or how to go and steal from the commercial publishers because they are making their money. You understand? The only thing now is if researchers decide that we have to start using the no-fee publishing route to publish and insist on that. And even with the commercial publisher, you tell them, you negotiate. I think a lot of problem with us from Africa or from the global south is that we don't negotiate. So with this, because they tend to usually leverage our ignorance about some of these things. So even if for now, because Diamond Open Access is still relatively new, you want to publish, tell the editor, I want to have a preprint on the repository, on my repository, or what is the green open access route? How long do I have to wait before I can openly, access my research? These are questions we should have to start asking editors. You understand? And so if the demand for opening our research is from all angles, the commercial guys will have no option. And unless we open up these our researches, of course, there's no way I can have an illegal means of going to get these researches from. You can even see Sci-Hub is also having issues. That's why whatever it is, you cannot have updated articles there. There would always be implication about implications when you go the wrong routes to get all of these things. You understand? I hope I've answered that. Of course, but the open access publishing thing have been around for a while. So you can get articles through Directory of Open Access Journals, like I said. Although you might, in some cases, you might not get what you want. You can also leverage librarians because librarians have their networks, right? So they can contact other librarians that the institutions have subscribed to get this. You can leverage academic social media sites. Some of these researchers have actually uploaded. And if they have not uploaded, you can request that they send copies. If they have the permission to do that, they'll be able to send. These are the routes that I know that you can get articles. But until we get it right, we still have to be going back and forth. And that is why the no-fee publishing is very, very important. You can see we are feeling the want. You want something, you see this research is very important for you, but there's no way you can access it. Malamisa, you asked as an independent editor. Now, I want to understand what you mean by independent, like an individual.
Sorry, yes, an individual that has that runs a journal,
Okay.
like say as a publisher. How can I make my journal internationalize my own journal? Yes, of course.
Okay, so I would answer this question as best as I can because, like I said, the no-fee publishing is academic owned. Now, as an individual editor, most likely you must have a team of editorial board, right? So it's not just an individual thing again, except, and I say this because there will always be sustainability cost, right? So if it's not, publishing costs money. We must not deceive ourselves. You understand? So even with the open access publishing, the money is being paid by someone. It's either an institution, an individual. So most likely that independent or editor must get funding through donations, whatever it is. But there are open infrastructure that person can leverage. I talked about the open journal system. It's an open source system. That editor just needs to configure it, right? And he or she will get people that would submit. You must get reviewers. So most likely you have to tell your reviewers that this is, what do they call it? There are no fees, voluntary service and all of that. But for some of the running costs, maybe through donations, you might get grants, you understand. That is the way. But running that journal, most likely it cannot be an individual thing any longer. You understand? You as the journal manager, but with your team of editorial board, because it must be academic and community driven. No longer business as usual. I hope I've answered that question as best as I can.
I see Dr. Basiru. Please, that will be our last question. Please, can you unmute and then ask your question or make your comments?
Hello, good morning. Good morning. My name is Adetoro Salau from Redeemers University. My network has not been stable, although my question has been addressed by the presenter. But let me start by commending our presentation. And let me say this, that you are very lucky in FootMina to have the likes of Dr. Adetoro and Dr. Fatima. I know what I'm saying. We are colleagues, and for a librarian to be doing kind of a thing, for them to be driving open access, open science, open science infrastructure in FootMina, please, I hope the management will get this. Please let us encourage them. And please, I also want to that this should not stop only within the FootMina. This should be sent to other institutions within Niger State. I said earlier that my questions have been addressed by Dr. Adetoro, but I still want to add this that what it is to have OJS just for you to have a system in place where to make it easier for all the stakeholders in the publishing process, the author, the editor, and the reviewer. If I want to publish my manuscript, I don't need to send my manuscript to any email. I'll just log in, upload my manuscript. And if the editor is okay, is within the threshold in terms of plagiarism, the editor will look for whoever the research interest in that area, just forward it to the best reviewer. And when the reviewer finish, it will send it back. The author will get notification. And that's the essence of some of these things. And some of what I've been publishing with some of these leading journals as an place of OJS, you agree with me that some of them, if you don't have OKID ID, you cannot publish your manuscript with them. So what I'm doing just to shed more light on OJS, and if you check our chat box, I'll be able to send the link there. So the presenter has said it. The only thing we need to do to meet up with some of these leading journals in developed countries is to internalize our journals. And one of the things we need to do is to embrace OJS, Open Journal System. Thank you so much, Dr. Adetoro. Thank you for the presentation. God bless you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Salau, once again for the wonderful presentation. And to our audience, thank you for finding time to attend this first webinar of the University Library Services, Federal University of Technology. Doc, if you don't have anything to say for us to end this, I would like to close this meeting. Or if there's anything you want to say, please kindly do that within 30 seconds.
All right,
so that we can close.
Thank you very much, Mala Isa, for standing in for the moderator. And I want to thank everyone that has found time to attend. I hope that we have met your expectation for what open access publishing is. I want to let us know that moving forward, we'll be having series of these webinars talking about recent developments in the research ecosystem. And we hope that you all find time to join and learn from us as we advance the academic publishing and open publishing, research publishing in Nigeria. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the contributor, Dr. Adetomiwa, Dr. Fatima Abdul-Dayan. Thank you so much, Dr. Ajayi, Saeed, Mr. Kobe, and everyone that has contributed. Professor Moren Keji, as usual, is always been our supporter with the library. Thank you very much for everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So on behalf of Dr. Busa, who I'm standing in for, the University Library, Federal University of Technology, this is our first webinar. Kindly tune in for the second one and series that are coming up in future. Thank you everyone for coming, and do have a blessed day. Thank you very much.